Hello and welcome everybody, I am Bavarian and today I have a guide to understanding and dealing with Confederate Partition. The tips you can get in this video will also be helpful with any form of partition succession, but will predominantly enable you, even as a new player, to have your realm survive the roughest and earliest form of inheritance, so that your dynasty can prosper. Please take note that I will not spend too much time discussing exploits in this video, seeing as exploits will be gone as time passes and patches are released, but your understanding of the succession will stay and remain helpful. At the end of this video, I will shortly be speaking on what I call a hostile succession, by which I mean taking hostile actions against your children to further your heir's standing in the world, but I would not directly recommend this over the possible solutions I will be presenting before that, unless you really have no other options. I will also discuss two exploits at that point. Now, let's kick it off. Let's consider what actually happens when Confederate Partition occurs. In the eyes of the characters and the world that apply this law, their eligible children deserve the equal position that they themselves have. This means that in the eyes of a king, their children, in principle, all deserve to be kings as well. In the eyes of a duke, their children, in principle, all deserve to be dukes. This is why the first check the game does is analyzing whether there are enough titles of your top level to go around. If you only hold one duchy title, for example, there is not much to go around on first glance, but the game will also check at this point whether you hold more than 50% of any duchy titles that have not been created yet. If so, those duchy titles will be created wherever possible until all of your children have gotten the same amount as your heir. If you have 3 heirs and hold 5 duchy titles, for example, and there's one uncreated duchy title in your realm on the other hand, you will get 2 duchies, your second heir will get 2 duchies, and your third heir will get 1 duchy and create the uncreated one. Here comes the truly tricky part. If there are not enough titles of your top title to go around for everybody, the heirs that went empty-handed will attempt to fairly split the next lower tier. Be mindful about the following. Only on your actual top tier level will the game attempt to create new titles. If you're the King of England, meaning that your highest title is a king tier title and you have uncreated duchy titles, your heirs will not create them automatically during succession. If somebody still loses out on this lower level, they will attempt to go down even further until the point at which they reach counties. If an heir has not been satisfyingly equipped with lands that match the primary heir's lands, they will start dipping into your actual county domain, and that can hurt. The true pain of Confederate Partition, and any form of partition for the record, lies in the fact that they will go into your county domain. This was how this works in theory, but let's go through this with a bunch of quick examples in which I will show you a solution of solving the issue of the inheritance crisis. In this case, I am the Duke of Jorvik. I only hold the Duchy of Jorvik, but I do have more than 50% of available land in one other duchy, that is Northumbria. My firstborn will of course get Jorvik, and my secondborn will get Northumbria. The issue comes with my thirdborn son. My thirdborn son doesn't get his own duchy, so instead he looks towards my domain to take counties that put him as equal as possible to his brothers. In this case, he takes 2 out of 3 of my domain counties, leaving my primary heir with a nice duchy and some adjacent territory, but incredibly weak, seeing as he is only getting 1 county in his domain, leaving him with much less income and levies. There are multiple problems to this. Whenever one of the other heirs goes independent with the same top-level title as your primary heir, the primary heir gets a claim on the top-level title, so that they may reunify the realm without much hassle. You can simply declare a war for the title and immediately bring everybody within it under your yoke. However, since our youngest heir still swears fealty to our primary heir as a count, we get absolutely no claims on it, unable to easily reclaim our core territory. This is horrible if you are planning to build up a strong core empire over time. Now, what is the solution to this? Succession-wise, and without mistreating any of your children, the easiest solution is getting over 50% of the Duchy of Lancaster. Doing this makes it so that your youngest son will not attempt to cannibalize our domain, and instead simply becomes independent as the Duke of Lancaster, leaving our domain completely untouched. Now, I realize how counterintuitive this sounds. Lose land and let them go independent is the better option compared to just some internal splintering. Now, the answer to this is quite simple. Keeping your domain together is absolutely vital, as mentioned beforehand. They, on the other hand, when they go independent, will get land barely under their control, supplying them with almost no troops. Right after your death, your primary heir can then set out to push the actual claims on the lost duchies they get to re-add the lost territory to their realm, while staying in full control of their core domain. After just 5 minutes, you'll be in full control of your domain and be able to reclaim the rest of your realm as well. While the external splintering might seem bad and most certainly looks bad, an easy reclamation war is vastly preferable over losing the income and troops from internal splintering of your domain. Let's look at a different example. We are now the King of England, still ruling over the same domain lands in Jorvik. Our firstborn will inherit England, and since we do not own any other kingdom title or hold enough land to have another one created on succession, our sons will attempt to instead balance it all out on the duchy level. Well, unfortunately for them and us, we also only hold the Duchy of Jorvik, meaning there is nothing to be split. So instead, our sons venture out and lay yet again claim to our very personal county domain. Now I want to stress the following again, especially with many unruly vassals in your realm, leaving your central power in tatters by leaving you with only one domain county is a horrible idea. Having your domain cannibalized is the genuinely worst outcome of this succession, and you will always want to avoid it. Fear not, however, for there are multiple solutions. You can either go and conquer some foreign lands, say some pieces of Ireland, or create uncreated duchies that already exist within your existing realm. Either way, form the two duchies that you either conquered or already had, and hand them over to your sons. You can also hold on to them until you die, but be wary since too many held duchies will give an opinion penalty. You could also simply never form any other duchies, but hand out enough counties that are outside of your regular domain throughout your lifetime to quench the thirst for counties of your heirs. This is something that especially new players do not fully realize until it is too late when they start out. Handing out titles to your eligible heirs before your death will already count towards their inheritance. This is, interestingly enough, also how modern inheritance laws still work. If I gift a lot of property to a child of mine right before I die, this will in many jurisdictions count towards their share of the total inheritance. This last tip is especially vital if you have no duchy titles to go around as a king. Your domain might split, but you can at the very least determine which pieces of it you maintain and which pieces the other sons get. Watch out, however. Your sons will demand more counties than your primary heir will have afterwards if they got skipped over in an earlier step. This is because otherwise, of course, it would be unfair to them. They will be your vassals in the first place, they would at the very least like to be a strong vassal. The optimal family-friendly strategy in this example is to simply give them a duchy each before your death while still holding on to one yourself. This way they will remain your vassals, and while they might get claims on you, your heir can do what they view as fitting for them, with the strength of their own domain. Now, all of these solutions were the family-friendly versions of dealing with the issue. Sometimes, if you have 4, 5, 6 or even more eligible heirs, it will be impossible to realize the strategies that I just presented to you in full. Instead, you have multiple options. You can disinherit them. This will cost you a bunch of renown, but makes sure that, for the most part, you won't have to think about that kid ever again. You can only do this if you are the dynasty head, so keep that in mind. Imprisoning and killing them is also an option. You can easily do that, and with the hooks you will commonly have on your children, it will also be practically a guaranteed imprisonment. However, the tyranny penalty gained from this will stick at least somewhat to your heir. It is also possible to cheese the entire thing, although again I would be very careful about encouraging this since it can be fixed in future versions. If your secondary heir inherits, for example, the Kingdom of Wales, all the Eurovassals of Wales will go with them. Well, that is, unless you handed all of those vassals over to the Eurovassal of your kingdom. Here, for example, I handed over the Welsh duchies to a Lord of Wessex who will, since his primary title is Wessex, be staying with me after my death. The result is highly scuffed Wales. You can then still go to war against your brother, but they will have practically nothing. And last but not least, you can title succession law them out of their inheritance. This is the even cheesier way of doing it, since I'm pretty sure that Paradox did not at all intend on this to work like this. Now, when you add a title succession law to any title, like adding Tenestry or the Witten elective law to your kingdom title, for example, those titles will be ignored entirely, as though they do not exist for your regular inheritance calculation. However, that's not where this ends. When a title even gets so much as a specific gender preference law, even if that law matches your realm law, for example, your realm and title law are both male preference, it will be ignored by succession. This means that if I am the King of England and the King of Wales at the same time, and one of them has a male preference additional law alone, my kingdom will never be split between those two in succession, since the game believes that Wales has its own succession law, despite that being merely a gender law. This is a very cheesy, albeit very simple way of not splitting at all as soon as the innovation for High Crown authority is unlocked. This means that effectively you will also be ignoring normal partitions since existing king titles will not be split if you equip them with their own succession law, in this case male preference. You can go ahead and apply the family unfriendly and cheese techniques as much as you want, of course, but I implore you to understand exactly how Confederate Partition works with the help of this video, so that you can get the optimal inheritance result without having to spread tyranny, renown, or cheese that might get patched out. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that it will help you when it comes to Crusader Kings 3 and Succession. With that being said, I would like to thank the members of the channel. Of course, thank you the Barons, the Counts, and the Dukes for supporting the channel directly and making videos such as this one possible. If you also want to support the channel, then check out the join button right underneath the video. The next tutorial video that will be coming out will cover warfare. I will see you then, and later, alligator.